Alright, so we're back and ready to do part 2. I hope you really enjoyed the music in part 1. If you haven't seen it yet, please go ahead and watch it after this. We've got some great songs coming up here in part 2, so let's get rolling. Back to the desk. And we are back at the desk to continue with part 2 of episode 37. However, before we get into the main video sequence, I want to make a correction here about Rosenkreuz's album. I said it was an Italian, which was a very ignorant thing for me to say. Of course, it is Latin, a Latin title. And when I very first got this album, I recognized it as a Latin title, but somewhere along the way, I don't know, I guess I was reviewing Logos' new album, and I got into the fact that I could read the title of the album, which is in Italian, and understand the meaning. Somehow that just got converted in my head that this was also Italian. But no, it is... not only is it Latin, but it is actually a very well-known Latin phrase, which I've actually just never heard in Latin, and so it's like it was staring at me right in the face and I missed it. So the album title is, now I'm still not sure about the accent marks, but anyway, Divide et Impera. Alright, and of course, for those of you who are more educated than me, which is probably most of you, it is divide and conquer, or divide and rule. Now, I could guess divide is divide because it's the same spelling, and I know that et or e, whatever, is the same in French, I think also like and, but impera, I was just thinking, oh, imperative, English grammar, imperative. The imperative, of course, is when you give a command to somebody, like sit down, be quiet, open your textbook, that kind of thing. But of course, if you say it as impera, well, it sounds an awful lot like emperor. Or you can also see the words like imperial and so on from this. So, yeah, the word means to rule. Well, of course, that's why you have imperial or emperor, and it's all about ruling. So anyway, there's me learning something new. It's one of the things I love about intelligent music. You can learn a lot from it. Anyway, I already talked about this album. If you missed part 1, as I said at the very intro at the train station, go back and watch it. Do check out this album. And now let's continue with the main part of part 2. 6 more albums. Episode 37. Here I go again. So, next up, let's take a look at OVRFWRD's album Star Stuff, which was released... Oh, it was released in October of last year, so this is a fairly recent one here. I first got to know about OVRFWRD a few years back when I received a private message through Prague Archives asking if I would review their album Fantasy Absent Reason, and I really liked it, and I thought I'm going to have to buy it sometime, but I didn't. And after a couple of years, I was asked to review another one of their albums, and then I was asked to review their previous one before this, Blurring the Lines, A Democracy Manifest. And that album was just so good, I thought, okay, I'm buying that, and I'm buying Fantasy Absent Reasoning, and I'm getting their debut album as well. They had one more, but it was sold out. Anyway, those first 3 albums, they are all very good, but actually even really good in parts, but I have to say that Blurring the Lines, A Democracy Manifest was just so incredible. I thought, man, these guys have really hit their stride now. And this album here too, Star Stuff, it carries on that pace there. OVRFWRD are an instrumental band, but they can do just about anything here. They have such diversity in the moods of their tracks. The first track, Firelight, it's like a classic 70s rock out jam type song with some great Hammond organ sound, like going back to 1969 Deep Purple. The title track, it's again one of these more moody, atmospheric things where you could be like standing on a cliff looking at these stars in the sky, or I don't know, watching like a storm come in over the waves, over the sea, or something like that. And then they also have other tracks on this album, and on the previous one there are some more kind of like, you know, haunting and eerie moods, or something kind of sinister and more lively, kind of rock out jam type things, and also really delicate and beautiful things. One track on here, Daybreak, it's just piano solo. But I think the one that I am really thinking to share with you, yeah, it's the final track from Parts Unknown, and it actually has maybe 3 sides. So it has a very delicate beginning. Well, here, check out the beginning. Just listen to how from Parts Unknown starts. And then it gets into a little bit more powerful but beautiful kind of I don't know, it's like a delightful day in the country with really energetic feeling like that. And then it wraps up by actually going into a kind of like just jam session with electric guitar and so on, and everybody's just playing away. But yeah, I want to play this part here because I feel this is where the music is just really uplifting and beautiful. So let's listen to this part here from Parts Unknown, from the album Star Stuff by OVRFWRD. Check it out. Next up, we have Marco Ragni, who is an Italian singer-songwriter, and he's becoming quite a regular fellow on the channel. I first talked about him, oh wow, it was like way back in episode 3, where he was one of the artists I featured. And since then, because Marco puts out an album, at least one new album a year, as well as re-releasing some of his older solo material, as well doing EPs and so on. So because he's got this fairly steady output, he's been featured in 2018, end of 2018, 2019, and then this should be 2020, but we're going to do it now. Anyway, this is his latest album, If. Actually, I ordered it and it didn't reach me until, I think it was either the very end of December or the beginning of January. So that's one very good reason why I'm doing this program as this video as episode 37 here in 2021, not in December 2020. Anyway, what can we say about If? All right, so Marco says that this is an album that talks about choices. Choices made, wrong choices, choices not made. And inside, if you open it up, it says, if you had been more resourceful, if you had said less lies, if you, instead of choosing to be bad, had chosen to be good, if you were more fun, if you were less shy, if you had been more curious, if you had made important decisions without fear. You can always choose which side you are on. We can be the leaders of our lives, choose our fate, or we can entrust our choices to others. There are endless ways to make sense of your life, or not. Which will you choose? This album is a little bit different from his previous albums. I guess it's because on his previous albums he has worked together with guitarist Peter Matuchniak, as well as several other artists, and some of them have been fairly made regular appearances on his albums. But this time here, he worked together with Norwegian guitarist Bjørn Riis from the band Airbag. Yeah, one of the things about Bjørn Riis is he's one of those guitarists who really gets into the melody and the feel of the music, and he seems to be playing from his soul. Just check out a little bit of the solo here that he plays in the track Engulfed, track 3. Check out this part here. overall, I am really impressed with his album. I have quite a few of Marco's albums. I like them. There are certain standout tracks or parts of tracks that really stand out for me. But this album here, while I was going through it and thinking, what am I going to feature? There was just so much cool stuff. I mean, just the beginning of the track, Engulfed, for example, this really drew me in. Just check out the beginning part here a little bit. Okay, but it would not be a Marco Ragni album if I only featured the instrumental parts. You've got to hear his voice. Marco has one of those voices where, you know, he can sit down with a guitar and you just kick back and lean and listen to the soulfulness of his voice, listen to the wisdom of his lyrics, and just think about what he's saying while the music plays. He's that kind of a performer, or that kind of an artist. So let's now listen to a bit of, I forget what song it is now. If I Could Tell You. Let's listen to this little part here of Marco Ragni from If I Could Tell You, from the album If, just released the end of last year. Here we go.
I come to you, spirits of my dreams, along the glittering endless night, beside moonlight streams. I often get lost in parallel worlds. I go in and out of several doors. Some lead to dark spaces, others to magical places.
The last couple of years have been really rough on Karen Langley and Rob Williams, the two main folks behind the band Babal. They have both spent time in hospital for cancer, operations, cancer treatment, and of course, coming out of hospital, having to spend time at home to heal. Then this whole COVID-19 thing broke out, and I mean, they were scared crapless because, you know, their immune systems are already working overtime, trying to rebuild up their bodies and their strength, and then this came out, so it was a rough year for them, especially last year. However, that did not stop them from making new music. Now, they already began a trilogy called The Circle of Confusion of Tongues, which I believe we first featured the first part way back in 2018. And then in 2019 up to the beginning of 2020, the second part came out as 3 EPs. So that's 2A, 2B, and 2C. Part 3, a full-length album, is currently in the works. In fact, I think they're more or less wrapping it up. But in the meantime, while Karen was building up her strength and getting ready to take on the world one more time, Rob went ahead into the studio and put out this Babal instrumental album called Dreams for Imaginary Puppet Shows on the Radio. Yeah, that's the kind of thing you're going to get from Babal. All right, let's see here. Well, yeah, it is an instrumental album, but Karen is featured on the back here because she does actually do the vocals, not singing like lyrical vocals, but, you know, does provide vocals. And in fact, we're going to hear a little bit of that in one of the tracks I'm going to feature. When I first got this album, I was driving to work rather than taking the train. I started listening to the first couple of tracks and I thought, okay, this is going to be an interesting album. And then the third track, Shall Not Fade Into the Night, came on, and I had to pull the car over and take a look. What is playing? This is really cool. It is, again, I guess because last year I was so much doing like the heavy metal thing. This year it is all the beautiful melodies that are really catching my attention. So last year 2020. So yeah, it was this music was just really so beautiful, and after that I really started paying attention to what was coming off of this record here. And there's a good variety of music. There's quite a lot of different stuff going on, but just as an idea of the beauty of the music that caught my attention, here's another track called Night Falls. Let's just listen to a little bit of that to give you an idea of what it was that made me pull over. So overall, lots of interesting music, a good variety, and very interesting song titles or track titles. The very last one, Yog Shoggoth Absorbs LA. If you're into Lovecraft, H.P. Lovecraft at all, you'll know what I'm talking about. But the track that I want to feature here is called Scorpion Master. This is track 10. And well, just check it out. This will give you an idea of what to expect from this Babal album. Dreams for imaginary puppet shows on the radio. Here we go, Scorpion Master. So here we have Peter Matuchniak and his album Sessions that came out last year in 2020. Peter is, again, he's one of those people that have been featured on this channel a few times. Of course, I did an actual episode where he was one of the artists featured. Peter is a guitar player, and you can catch his music in various bands, of course, including with Marco Ragni, as I already mentioned. He's been with Steve Bonino, who we've talked about before, Transport Arian, we've talked about before, Kinetic Element, we talked about, I think, back in 2019. And he also has his own solo band, as well as he's in a Steve Hackett tribute band that plays live, a band called Steps. He's met Steve Hackett a few times anyway, too. I think they're buds. Anyway, so during the lockdowns, he had some time to work on something that he had always been thinking to do. Peter, of course, as I said, he's provided the guitar work for a number of different albums. But always, of course, he records his guitar parts and then sends them off, and somebody else does the mixing and putting the guitar into the song. And he often thought, I would like to, you know, do it the way I hear it, the way I imagine it should sound. And so that was one of the things he got around to doing last year, is that he contacted the different artists and he said, I would like to remix and in some cases even rearrange some of the music the way I think I would like my guitar to come out. And they all said, yeah, sure, go ahead. So we have on this album almost 80 minutes of music, which is like a double album if it's a vinyl. 21 tracks here of varying lengths, some shorter tracks of just over 2 minutes, some longer ones extending up to over 7 minutes here. Mostly from Marco Ragni, but also from Steve Bonino and Transport Arian, as well as some others. So one of the things Peter also told me was that it had always been of interest to him to try to mix and arrange somebody else's music instead of just always doing his own. And so this was also an opportunity. So my original impression when I first heard this album was I heard all this guitar solos and riffs and so on from albums I have. And I thought, oh, these are some of my favorite parts from these. So I was thinking this is kind of like a greatest bits album where we just hear some of the best of Peter's guitar work with all these other artists. But Peter explained to me that, yeah, he did actually not only remix, but in some cases he rearranged tracks so that what we get here is an actual complete track, start, middle, and end, rather than just, you know, this track fades in, here's Peter's bit, and fades out again. And that was my fantastic solo or riff from that song. No, he's arranged them so that this actually is his own album. Not entirely, of course, a lot of the music is written by other people, but anyway, this is his interpretation of these songs. And Basically, he said, I think there were a couple of longer ones where, like, for example, a 15-minute song where he may have played on for 5 or 6 minutes, and so he just took that part out. But still, you know, did a little bit of arranging. Anyway, there's just a lot of really great stuff on here. I would like to feature maybe just 2 tracks. Let's see here. One of them is Nucleus 2, and another one is called Abstract Dreams. They're both from Marco Ragni's albums, but listen to a little bit there to get some idea. And Abstract Dreams, yeah, it features flute. And maybe it's because I find I really like flute in rock music, but you'll also hear Peter's guitar. So yes, let's listen to that and hear a little bit about what Peter was doing. I will let you know that he's busy at work on new things for this year. But anyway, here we go. Peter Matuchniak and Sessions. Let's see if any of this music can grab you as much as it grabbed me. We've covered 10 albums so far, and before we move on to the last 2, I'd like to talk about the band Murky Red. I talked about them way back again in the first year of Music is a Journey back in 2018. We've been waiting for Murky Red to put out a new album, and apparently there is one that is in the process of being mixed by none other than Marco Ragni, but Marco is also a very busy man, so I'm not sure how soon we can expect the album. So last year, Murky Red released a song called No Woman through their label Melodic Revolution Records, and that song, lyrically, it is a statement against the mistreatment of women. However, aside from the fact that it is a really good song, the video for it, I got to have a little bit of a hand in making the video. Steph Fleming, the guy behind Murky Red, he asked me if I could help out somehow, and so what we needed was to have people standing holding something like a piece of cardboard or a towel or some kind of blank object where the lyrics would be printed on. So I asked some of the high school students at the English school where I work at here in Japan if they wouldn't stand and hold something, and so 6 of the students participated, 3 students from 2 different classes. And as well, there were some kind of random street scenes which I think I also shot, definitely one of them and possibly 2 of them, which also appear in the video. So that is pretty cool. I also got a little bit of credit at the end, as well as my students also got credit. So that's really awesome. So yeah, we can definitely look forward to Murky Red's 3rd album. Their previous one, No Hocus Without Pocus, I still hold that album in really high regard. I think it's really great. And from their debut album, Boots for Hire, that song is still one of my favorite, and definitely an awesome Murky Red song. So now, let's get on to album number 11. So a lot of the artists I feature on this channel are all signed with Melodic Revolution Records. And it's not a big surprise because the guy who is behind this in the very beginning, the inspiration for it, Colin Tench, the late Colin Tench, was signed with Melodic Revolution Records. And the very first Music is a Journey episode was meant to be just a single video to talk about his albums and his music. And very untimely and very unfortunately, he passed away after the release of his 2nd solo album. But anyway, because of him, I got to know a lot of the other artists signed with Melodic Revolution Records. Peter Matuchniak, Babal, Marco Ragni, Kinetic Elements, Transport Arian, Steve Bonino, several others. And I also got to know Nick Katona, who is the man behind Melodic Revolution Records. So, the big cheese in the top hat I seem to have listed here in my notes. Anyway, recently Nick sent me a download code for a compilation album of Melodic Revolution Records artists who released material in 2020. Some of those artists we've already talked about, like Transport Arian, Peter Matuchniak, Marco Ragni, Andres Waselli, Babal, Blake Carpenter, Kinetic Element, Joe Deninzon, and Stratospheerius. However, I found that on this compilation there were just a lot of other really cool songs by great artists that I actually hadn't heard of before, or whose names I was only just barely familiar with. So I listened to it and I just was so impressed, and so I asked Nick, can I choose maybe about 5 tracks to feature just like 10-15 seconds in this video? And he said, yeah, sure, that'd be great. And then I listened to it and I tried to pick out just 5, and initially I had 12 songs I wanted to feature, and that's 12 by artists that I didn't already feature in previous videos. These are all new artists to me. But I narrowed it down to well, I was trying to narrow it down to 5, but Joe Denison's and Stratospheerius, that track was just so good. Even though I featured Joe in a previous video, I thought, I gotta have that one. And then I thought, 6, let's just make it 7, because there's another really cool song that I really want to include. So what I want to do now is to feature 7 tracks, clips from 7 tracks from that Melodic Revolution Records 2020 compilation. And after you've heard that, I recommend you go on over to Bandcamp and search for Melodic Revolution Records. You will find like tons of albums on there. You will also find the compilation album as well as some other ones. Check out what they've got. If you want to order just a compilation album, you can. If there's anything you really like, check out the other artists. You can get downloads, you can get CDs, some of them you can get vinyl. You might even be able to get a cassette if you look hard enough, I'm not sure. But anyway, let's check out here now 7 tracks from Melodic Revolution Records 2020 compilation album.
Halfway to heaven, get a 2-step from hell. Heartache and hunger draw me to her well. Well, hallelujah, still hanging there.
It's hard to believe in the Garden of Eden. It's hard to believe in sights unseen.
It's temporary, that it's temporary. 'Cause everybody else is living like they just got a prima life.
Look to the past, you know it won't last. The world keeps calling your name. It's a beautiful day. No need to feel lost, everything has its cost.
Raging inside of me, I reach for you, but I can't breathe. It's killing me now. It feels so good.
Okay, that brings us now down to the last of the 12 albums I wanted to feature today, and actually the last artist is Freeways. Well, if you watched my last episode, my previous episode, episode 36, you heard me talk about Freeways. The only problem was that I contacted all the bands that I featured in that video and asked them permission to use the music, and I got replies from 11 with the affirmative. However, I did not hear back from Freeways until after the video was posted on YouTube. And they said, sorry to be late, but yeah, go ahead, use the music. Yeah, the video's already done, but I said, I'd like to probably use your music in the future then. And they said, don't even need to ask, give her. So I thought, well, hey, why not? So in order to fit Freeways in here, by the way, I had to kick off this New Zealand band called Outside In. Very cool album they released last year. I reviewed it for Prog Archives, thought it was great. But yeah, we're going to put in Freeways here. Freeways, as I said, I talked about them at more length in the previous video. However, they are a quartet from Brampton, Ontario. They are a melodic, classic, hard rock band, bringing back the sounds of the likes of like Blue Oyster Cult, Thin Lizzy, April Wine. I'm hearing some Wishbone Ash on here. I'm even hearing a little bit that reminds me of something from Judas Priest Point of Entry. So a little bit of British heavy metal in there as well. It's just a really wonderful album and I love it. In fact, the very beginning of this video, little clip there where I was kind of waking up to the year 2021, that video and the music playing in the background was Eternal Light, Eternal Night. Is that the way it goes? Eternal Light, Eternal Night, which is the opening track from this album. And now I would like to play the title track, True Bearings. This, by the way, is their debut. They had an EP back in 2017, and I've heard that the band is now working on yet another EP, so we're going to look forward to more music from Freeways. So as this video wraps up, and I give all my thank yous to all the people who said I could use their music in this video and so on, while you're looking at that, you can enjoy the music of Freeways and True Bearings. And until next video then, I hope everybody stays safe, and please do check out music, go to Bandcamp, see what you can get. Alright, here we go. Freeways.